Hey everybody, it's Mike Sherwood and welcome to my channel, Don't Waste Your Life, where it reminds you to be present, to be happy, and to be thankful. If you're new to the channel, I ask you to subscribe below. If you're returning, thanks for coming back. So in this week's session, it's going to be a special session. I actually did an interview with my business partner, Charles Cromwell, and Charlie is a very interesting character. He's a world traveler. He's traveled to many places in the world. Basically anywhere you could think of, he's probably been to, or he's going to go there at some point. So he's big into traveling. He also owns a real estate company. He's one half of the partnership that I have with C&M Rental. He also owns multiple businesses, and his journey is just very interesting to see how there's no way he could have planned for his life to play out this way. It just he took advantage of different opportunities that presented themselves to him and just followed them through. And at the same time, he met different people and took advantage of those situations and, moved things in a way that it would not have happened without that help, and with good timing from other people. So in this interview, I talked for quite a while about different things. My hope is that everybody will get something good out of it. I actually did. I actually really enjoyed this conversation. In the future, I hope to have other conversations with him about other things. So this is a new format, of something I'm trying. I'd like to see what you guys think. Thanks.
Talk about this guy named Mike, and I was just starting to go to the gym, and Jan would say, "Yeah, this he can leg press 1,000 pounds." And I'm thinking to myself, I'm just starting out at the gym. Well, wait a minute, what is this, Arnold Schwarzenegger? So I started to really want to meet this guy. So I said, okay. I can't remember what I said, but I give you $50 or $100 if he can really do this. So we get together. I think we met at my gym,
Yeah, it was your
and
gym.
yes, and Mike was, young, right out of college, in pretty damn good shape. Took him two
Yeah,
shots, but he got that freaking 1,000 pounds up, and that was awesome. That was
that was
awesome.
pretty cool.
That was
Just,
our
just,
that was our like first semi workout together.
and then we had many workouts after that. I mean, I still remember our shortcuts to the shred. Those were crazy workouts, like crazy, crazy, crazy workouts. So we had a lot of fun doing that and doing the badminton, doing the other stuff too. We had a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun with that. So, and I mean, then you and I became business partners, so that was fun. Yeah, and we'll talk more about that as well. So I mean, Charles, why don't you introduce yourself? Give us a little background about yourself, your story, where you live, because I mean, some people will be like, "Well, where are you?" And I mean,
Yeah.
I can see, yeah. So you can go
Well,
through that.
I live outside of Buffalo, New York, in the suburbs. I'm a graduate of the University of Buffalo with a chemical engineering degree. Um, Two most interesting things about myself is that I published my first book with my brother Ken.
Mm.
That came out a few years back, and books number 2 and 3 are coming out shortly. Fantasy novels, and I've done extensive amount of traveling: Africa, Asia, South America, Central America. Um, because for the longest time I've been single. Um, Living in the same house basically since I was, a baby.
Yay
So
big.
yeah, yay big, a foot long. They called me Peanut at the hospital because I was so small. So I've had
Yeah.
some disposable income to travel, and I've had many, many experiences, and gotten to see a lot of different cultures. And in fact, that's helped me when I've written my books, because I've seen Egypt, I've seen
Mm.
Greece, I've seen Italy. Um, so those are the entertainment parts of my life. And I was an engineer for a long time, but now I'm doing that part time. I'm
Mm.
helping run our property management business. I'm doing some repair work for our property management business. I have a company called i3DS where we're doing 3D scanning and some 3D drafting. So a lot of cool things are going on, and it's allowing me more time to not be stuck at an office. I can work from home. I can take 2 weeks off. I can go to Colombia for vacation. I can do all kinds of fun stuff nowadays.
So so But I guess as you kind of like talk through this, I'm sure people are thinking, "Wow, that sounds like a very interesting thing." Where you don't have like a typical 9 to 5, Charles. You have kind of the freedom to just kind of come and go as you please. I mean, obviously you have businesses and you have things that you need to attend to, but like your lifestyle is much more flexible than the average person.
Yeah, it's much more flexible, but you're still always tied to your phone. I'll be on vacation in Colombia or I'll vacation in China, and I'll have to put together a work order schedule, or somebody from my accounting department or somebody from our property management team will ask me a question. I might be 12 hours difference, but I'll have to answer that question. I mean, we've got a good team, we've got good people, but still, there are certain things I need to do no matter where I am. So, when I'm on vacation, I tie my Chromebook to my computer at home. I do some work and vacation at the same time. So it's much more flexible. It's really nice.
So this has allowed you to travel I guess so did the travel come first or did this work flexibility come first? I mean, or is it a little bit of both? Because I was just kind of curious to understand because people probably like wondering. It's like, well, hey, you traveled and did all this stuff, but was it because your work was flexible, or is this just like you just traveled a lot because you just enjoyed it?
No, travel a lot because I enjoyed it. I started traveling well before um, I left the 9 to 5 business. I've been out of the 9 to 5 for 3 or 4 years now, but for years and years before that, I worked as a product line manager for a few different companies, as a process engineer. And you get anywhere between 3 and 5 weeks at the end of vacation, and I would just use those to pick one or two places to go.
Mm.
Every Basically one or two nice places to go every year. And I'd say we probably started around the year 2000. We started going on trips.
Oh
From
wow.
Yeah,
So you've been traveling for quite a while now.
yeah, yeah, and it was
Wow.
usually one or two trips a year. So that adds up after a while. But now, I mean, this year, I was to Colombia one, two, 3 times. I was to Italy once. Normally you
Nice.
just can kind of do that.
Yeah. Well, I remember when you went to China numerous times and you've kind of traveled to different places. Uh I guess what was one of your favorite places that you traveled to that you enjoyed and why did you enjoy it?
Well, there's different things to see in different places. For
Mhm.
history, there's nothing like Rome
Mhm.
and Athens, Rome and Greece, because I love Western civilization, Western history, and that's just amazing. You travel a little further south and you go into Egypt and you see the pyramids and the mastabas and the tombs and the deserts, and that's awesome. And then if you do something completely different to see nature, get your
Mhm.
butt into Kenya, to be into one of those jeeps with their cover top, because it's like 115 degrees Fahrenheit there,
Mhm. Mhm.
and driving around, and the animals just literally 10 feet away from you or 5 feet away from you. A
Wow.
lion eating a zebra, literally 5 feet away from you. It's incredible because they don't see the vehicle as a car, as another animal. So
Wow.
yeah, Kenya, Egypt, Italy, Greece, those are like the places to go. I've
Mm.
never gone, or I really have never gone on vacation ones where you just go to resort and sit there. Mine are more like educational kinds of things to see
Mhm.
ancient sites and things of that sort.
Yeah. You're mostly doing like activities or doing tours or different things. Yeah, yeah. I know you're not like really a vacation person. In fact, I think one of the few times that we kind of did some vacation stuff or you did some vacation stuff was when we went to Aruba, but we still made it into like some
Oh,
interesting things there.
oh my goodness! I remember your brother driving that tiny little car off road, like a little Honda Civic or something like that, going over the rocks. This is no way. And that was one of the nice parts about our partnership, because I had money, but I lived a very sheltered life. As
Hmm.
far as I didn't fix anything. I was sort of shy. I didn't have a lot of friends, and you were the complete opposite. You
Yeah.
were You're about 15, 20 years younger than myself, and you're very out there.
Out
uh,
there.
out there. Well, very very friendly and very
Friendly,
yeah,
friendly.
friendly,
Yeah.
not sort of crazy.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's so crazy. Yeah.
but so it made for a really great partnership as far as business goes, um, and
Yeah.
it made that trip to Aruba quite interesting too.
Yeah, and I would say, and it's not just like just a partnership, but like the friendship, the doing the gym and just like different things. I mean, I would say personally, those are some of my best memories. Was in Buffalo, was like the different things that we're doing, and like when we're creating the business, and we'll talk about that. Because I mean, I know there's lots of stories where we've done some silly things, so we'll have to talk about that. But I guess, like, how'd you get started in real estate? Like, how did you even? I mean, why? I guess why real estate, and how did you get started?
Well, the truth of the matter was, it wasn't something that was always my dream to do. It was my investments were with an investment company, and it just sat
Mm,
there. I had
mm,
disposable income to do some things, but then I started going to the gym with you. We were becoming friends, and you had a great deal of passion for this. And I
yes.
realized that this is, we sat down because we're both educated people, both, and we were able to sit down, run numbers, and see, hey, this is a business that makes
This could work.
sense. This
Yeah.
could work. And Buffalo at the time was very unique in that properties were available that would have positive cash flows with interest rates at the time that were relatively low compared to what we're seeing now. So it was more a matter of, hey, this is somebody I trust. We have the same long term plan for where we
Hmm.
want to go with this.
Hmm.
And I had some available cash to put into the business. And he had a lot of he wasn't afraid to do it. Let's put it that way. I would have never
Yeah.
done that by myself. I would not have done that. Somebody calls me at 11 o'clock at night because my uh, sink is leaking. Is like, well, I guess we're gonna have to call you a plumber. Mike and I might have gotten to the car and go out there and seen it because we might have gone out there and seen it. It was a tiny little drop and been a little unhappy about the whole thing. But
Yeah. I remember those. I remember those when we get there and we'd find out it wasn't really an issue. And we're like, seriously, you called us for this?
yes,
Wow. So that's kind of interesting. So it wasn't something really that you planned on, but it was more something that kind of just happened because you kind of fell into it. You met a person where you felt like you trusted. You have similar values where you guys were trying to go. You guys both agreed and understood that it wasn't like this was not a short term play, and this was not something that you were gonna make money off of like right out of the gate, and you're gonna have to do the work. You know, I would say so.
yeah, it was a long term investment. It's what would you say, maybe 10 years into it now, something like
Yeah,
that.
I would say 10 years. Yeah, because actually I was gonna say, like, I think it's been 10 years now. I mean, maybe even longer for some of the stuff. Because I mean, I started personally investing in real estate in 2008, and I don't remember when we bought our first one, but you remember what the first one was, though,
Oh
right?
yeah, it
The
was
first.
343 Broad Street. Yeah, it was 343. It turned out to be a nice property, a nice area. We've had good tenants, we've got bad tenants, but it was a good first property. A 3 unit. It's a nice 3 unit.
Nice 3 unit, yeah. I still remember when you went to go show that for the first time, Charlie.
Oh
Do you want to say what happened when you went to go show one of the apartments there once?
well, I know it was one of my very I think it was my very first showing, and we had a long term tenant in there, husband and wife, and I think some kids. But the
Yeah, some
husband, he
kids.
was younger in his 40s, but he
He
was
was
young.
young.
Yeah,
Yeah, he
he
was
was
young.
young, but he had some medical issues. So just as I was getting ready to show people the apartment, the upstairs apartment, the lower tenant was going out in a body bag, and I was just
You called me.
yeah.
You called me.
Yeah, we have a
Ugh.
corpse. We have a sighting of a corpse. So fortunately, the body got out before the tenant showed up, and it turned out the tenant that we ended up placing there that very day, Victoria, was a very good 5+ year long term tenant for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah, she was there a very long time. I even think it was longer than that. I want to say she was like maybe even 6 or 7 years. She was there. She was there a long time, and she had talked a couple times about moving out, but she stayed.
Yeah,
She was really, yeah, they were very good people, very good tenants. But yeah, it was kind of a tough experience for your first showing.
yes.
Having that happen. But and I know you had some difficulties with other stuff. But I will say, I've heard that you're actually undefeated in court right now, right?
Yeah, that's correct. We tenants have taken us to court trying to get security deposits back or rent back and whatnot. But no, no. Generally speaking, the tenants they're not going to win. Let's put it that way, because if they were really deserving their money back, they would have gotten it back. These are generally not the best, most responsible people.
Mm, yeah.
So
Yeah. So when you did these investments, so when you started this, I'm assuming you just kind of started this as a partnership. And then what was your strategy? Was it a buy and hold strategy, or were you guys thinking about flipping? I mean, what were you thinking about doing as a strategy?
well, our primary strategy was simply buy and hold, and we would
Mm,
sit down, calculate what our monthly payments would be, what our estimated repair costs would be, what our losses from tenants not paying would be,
mhm,
um, all the taxes, basically determine how much monthly income net we would get out of a property and
mhm,
calculate a rate of return.
mhm,
And that's a very simple tool we use to determine whether or not a property was profitable or not.
mhm,
And that was, in fact, uh, a very good way of weeding out properties when we were first looking at them. Is we could
mhm,
evaluate whether a property makes sense or not simply looking at the price, the taxes, the income, and if those all made sense, then we would go out and take a look at it. That's why we ended up putting in offers in at a very high percentage of the properties we ended up seeing. And in the old days,
mhm.
when we were expanding, we would win a large percentage of them. We really did.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think if we truly wanted them, I think we only missed on one. I think.
Yeah,
I'd have to
maybe.
look at it, but I think we only missed on one. And do you remember what one that one
Yeah,
was,
that was
right?
Ironton, and up in North Tonawanda. I still look for that because it's near some other ones we manage. I still look for that property because I'm not sure which one it is. But it was a 4 unit. It had like a bad heater or
Yeah,
something like that. And as it turns out, now that I know better, I just say, "Frick it, go ahead and replace the heater and move on."
and move on.
But the thing
Yeah,
was that was at a time when we started investing, property values were low,
very low, very
very
low.
low, and Buffalo had always been low, but they were quite low at the time. And
So when you say they're low, I mean, so are we talking about like duplexes or threeplexes or like 4 units? And what would that look like? What would the pricing look like? And maybe like what did you get in general for the rents
just as a
when you first started this?
yeah, just as a general guide, we were looking at we were always shooting for 4 or 5 units. We got
Yeah.
one 5 unit, we got a lot of 4 units because you got
Hmm.
one roof, one set of sewer systems, and you got a lot of units under that roof.
Yep.
And generally, a 1 or 2 bedroom, $500 a month, generally speaking. Um, a 4 unit might be $100,000. $25,000
Mm.
a unit would be, a good feel for it. And that would be up in a nicer area like North Tonawanda. When we went to a little lot not as nice areas, such as like in Lackawanna, then we could get 3 units for 50,000 or forty
Mhm.
thousand or 35,000 if they needed some work, especially if they needed some work. And
I'm assuming
again,
that's I'm assuming it's kinda changed now.
now those units, now duplexes are selling in those same areas are selling for 120, $150,000.
Wow.
The 4 unit ones, $250,000. We have a lot of equity built up in those properties because of what's really been a very rapid rise in property values over the past maybe 2, 3 years, something like that. Really, over the past 2 years. Now,
Yeah.
as we're in a period of high inflation, but also recession, I don't know how solid those numbers are going to be because, from a profitability standpoint, there isn't anything or much of anything in Western New York I would invest in. I'm not interested in something that's going to have a negative cash flow or maybe a 2 or 3% rate of return. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. That's interesting just to see how much the market's changed because I think even like I think when you and I were talking about this so I remember we had two models. We had two models. We had the long form model and then we had the quick and dirty model that we could quickly just put the numbers and like does it make sense or does not make sense.
Yeah,
And I remember when we built these models, we also assumed that there was no appreciation. Like we're like, it's cash flow only. That's the only thing you were looking for was cash flow. So it's just very interesting to hear just how much that market has changed. So it's almost like, I mean, have you guys ever thought about, trying to like bundle and sell them? Or is it like this is a long term strategy where you would keep them and just like when they're paid off, they just make money?
yeah. We have not really given any thought to bundling and selling
Yeah.
because we do have a team in place to manage them. So even
Mm.
if I were, to fall asleep under a tree for 20 years, they would be fine. Um,
Mm.
so they're intended to be long-term investments, which we're hoping to have paid off in 5 to 7 years. And in 5 to 7 years, then they will cash flow, will pay off. And we're in the process of doing that now, paying off debt. Now, I would say I have done some other investments with another business partner that's been more in this period of time with the high growth in property values.
Mm.
And the model there has been a little different. It's been more aggressive and less immediately profitable, definitely less cash flow. But what we've
Mhm.
done is we got in lucky with some properties before the boom hit, gotten
Yeah.
lucky with some properties after the boom hit, and they just sold for prices too low.
Mhm.
And what we've done is gone out, buy these properties, held them for a year or two, and then refinanced, pulled money out of them to purchase
Oh,
more stuff. Yeah,
so you pay so I'm assuming then what you did is you guys paid cash to kind of have an aggressive position to go in, did some work or did whatever you had to do and then refinance them. Is that what you're doing?
wouldn't pay cash. We would get a
Okay.
loan. We would get a bank loan for whatever they were asking, and then 2 years would go by,
Oh,
and
then you'd refinance. I see what you're
refinance
saying. I
because the
gotcha.
actual value of the property went up so much that we could pull money out of it. The thing is, what you're ending up doing is you're buying a property that our original business would have paid 100,000 for. We're paying a $200,000 mortgage on it, but we have
Mhm.
50 or 60 or 70,000 dollars in cash on hand to do something else. So
Yeah.
we ended up using some of that money to buy an Airbnb in North Carolina to see how that's going to work out. A whole different kind of business model. So there's other ways of doing it, but quite frankly, where we
Mm.
started the business originally, um, that was definitely the way to go and a far more profitable business model than sort of betting on property values increasing. That's
Yeah.
that's what you can do now. It's not nearly as profitable as if you can find businesses that actually cash flow.
Yeah, I feel like that's got to be challenging because, well, I think it's good, like, because it sounds like you have a couple different businesses, and by having those couple different businesses, it allows you to be focused in different ways because you almost have like a good fundamental business that has a solid foundation that, like, you're kind of covered, and you're like, well, I can swing for the fences on some of these other ones and like, two or three of them may not work out or not work out as well as I'd like, but like there may be one that you hit a home run and it does awesome and like, that kind of makes up for any of the risks that, you and your other business partner are taking. So it's very interesting to kind of
Yeah,
see that. But I feel like I mean, let's be honest, I know you have disposable income that kind of helps. But like also you have a solid solid other business that then allows you to kind of, you can take these risks and you're like, well, hopefully one of these is going to work.
Yeah,
And
yeah. At no time, at no time am I whole. Neither my original business or my new business for purchasing properties have I ever drawn money from.
yeah,
They're all long-term investments. Now,
and that's the key. And I feel like that's a key element. That's a key element. So, anyways, we're talking about these other businesses, and the idea was that what made it different compared to like probably like the average person is I think, at one point when you're doing all this with the original business with C&M Rental, you still had your day job and you weren't taking anything out of the business. In fact, you guys we were putting more in, more time, more money in. And do you feel like that's what allowed that to be successful? Because if you were taking stuff out, would that have worked?
uh, if we would have taken stuff out, we would have a mountain of debt. You know, Eh, and
Yeah,
we saw it even in Buffalo where it's profitable. We ended up buying properties from other people who went out of business
yeah,
because they were
yeah.
pulling money out of it, or
That's
they
right.
had one person that had like a husband doing repairs, and he got too old and too sick and couldn't handle it anymore.
Mm,
So no, but it was only because we put money. Really, we put money in initially. We didn't put too much money in after the initial investment, not cash wise,
no, no,
but
not cash wise.
not
Yeah,
cash
we
wise. But
didn't.
we put time into it, and
A
because
lot of time.
there's no such thing as passive income. Not really. You always
Mm,
have to work in some fashion. You know, if you want to be successful. So the business has gotten to the point where we have employees, we can take vacations, but we still, we have twice a week meetings. We keep track of things, but we're still 7 years, 8 years away from actually starting to pull money out of the business.
yeah. And when you guys get to that point, or when we get to that point, I guess what would that look like? Have you guys considered, then just turning around and buying more, or have you considered, or is that the point where like it's like, hey, I'm gonna retire or I'm gonna go do something else?
That we haven't really discussed. My feeling is we're talking about 7 years from now, when
Yeah,
I
seven
7 8
years.
years from now, when I'm in my early 60s.
Mm.
So that might be nearish retirement. Um,
I don't know if you would actually retire though, Charlie. I feel like you're
no, no,
pretty
probably
active.
not. And there might be some life changes going on.
Changes. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that might make my 60s more like a normal person's late 20s. So
But that's okay, because like what I've learned from you, Charlie, is even though you've kind of experienced like, because you talked about your sheltered life, how like me and you, like I kind of helped you open up, and I think Jan also helped you with that, open up. I think what I look at it as is like now you have a chance and opportunity to experience different parts of life that, yeah, you didn't get to do that like earlier in your life, but you're eventually gonna get to do it. I mean, so that's why like I think I remember when we were talking about like working out and doing gym stuff, you're like, well, I don't have knee injuries, or I don't have this, or I don't have that, because like you never worked out. Like you
yeah,
never worked
there
out.
was no football injury, baseball injury, basketball injury going on. There was no,
Yeah.
oh, I was mudding or four wheeling and I fell off. Nobody shot a firecracker at me when I was a kid. So
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't have any of those kind of injuries going on.
Yeah. So you've been, so that's the thing. I mean, you've been pretty healthy. And so, that's been beneficial to you, having longevity to kind of do all these other things. And I mean, you stay pretty active. Maybe your gyms aren't, I'm sure during COVID it was kind of tough with the gyms. I've always, seen that you've been pretty active since I've known you, running wise and stuff like that. So I feel like even if you have life changes, you can overcome it and work through it. So I don't foresee that as being an issue. So it sounds like you'll still have a very active retirement. So I think that's good. I think so. As I kind of like think about this as I transition to another part, I guess what advice would you have to other people that are because I think what's challenging is like your situation, and well, our situation was kind of unique. And so, like, you had some money and that helped. And I had time and I had ambition to work and to do things. But, like, there are other people that are out there that are like, well, I don't have any money. Like, what do I do? Or, how do I get enough money to start something? Or, is it even worth like starting small? So, I guess, like, what kind of advice would you have others are trying to start or want to do something?
Yeah, I think uh, first partnerships are a good idea to get into because
Hmm.
it there are no there's almost no person that has time, money, ambition, and all the skills necessary. So forming a
100%.
partnership with someone with the same goals and complementary skills
Correct. Yes.
is really very helpful.
You have to have the same goal in mind, because if you
Yeah,
don't, like, that'll be a disaster, I'm
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
So,
If I was partnered with somebody who was looking to pull cash out, and I was looking for it, just wouldn't work. In the 10 years we've run the business, neither of us has said, I really want to go on vacation. Can we pull $2,000 out of the account? No, we say, hey, there's some money in the account. We're not buying anything. Maybe we'll pay off a loan. You know
yeah, that's right, that's exactly right. It will
that,
pay off
that
a
that's
loan.
we'll pay off a loan and use that as a way of you know of what we should do with our money. So that's
Yeah.
one thing. To be honest with you, if you don't have money and you need to and you want to start a business, it's really tough.
Mm. Yeah, you gotta
Uh,
have money. Takes money to make money, basically.
yeah,
Yeah, I agree.
there's no denying that.
Mm.
People talk about different strategies you can take, but all those require a lot of luck and a lot of effort. Um,
Mm.
I think you need to find a career path that has a solid foundation in making you fiscally stable.
Mm.
You don't get into real estate hoping to get rich quick. It's not get
Yeah.
rich. You wanna get rich quick. I just bought $20 worth of Mega Million lottery tickets, so I might win $1 billion. That's my ticket to $1 billion.
And if you do, we're gonna buy some more houses, right? I mean,
I might buy some houses, but one might be in Rome, one might be in Athens, you know, uh,
oh my
one might be
gosh,
in Taiwan or something like that.
that's hilarious. Yeah, so I mean, so yeah, you almost have to have money, and maybe also what it is like maybe you could look at real estate as like a side hustle, or like or even like how I started. Like how I started real estate, I rented out my upstairs. So I bought a duplex and I rented out the upstairs. And then I had a roommate. And I mean, I look back at that now and like, I'm married, I have my own house now. And like, I can't imagine having roommates now. But like, I did that because, that's how I made it work. That's how I paid for my car. That's how I paid for some of the repairs I was doing at Miller Street. That's how I paid for, some of the stuff when you and I started. So it's almost like you have to like make it a side hustle. It can't be your primary business, because if you're drawing anything out of it, you're done. You just can't. It just won't support. It's not ready enough to support itself, I would say.
No,
Um,
it's unlikely. It's unlikely to do that.
and
Uh,
probably even more so now, right? Because I mean, the economy and like just you can't buy what you used to be able to buy for the price. You just can't. You just can't in Buffalo, or and anywhere really, but like Buffalo, I mean, I still remember when we bought that house in Lackawanna for what did we pay? Like 30,000, 34, something like that,
yeah, it
31
was
or
almost nothing. Five Warsaw was very, very low. So I think I think he was bankrupt. I think it was,
oh, that's right. Well,
yeah,
no, well, yeah, I think he was bankrupt and he tried to get a loan, but they wouldn't give him a loan for it because they had constituted that valuation of the property to be like predatory lending. So they wouldn't do it. So then like I went to my local bank, and in fact, I think that was the other strategy that worked for you and I in the beginning is like we took these out on our own. Like I put this one in my name, you put
yeah.
this one in your name, and
Yeah,
like
we both split up. We had a number of something like four or something in each of our names
yeah.
until we
And
started putting them in the company name. But
yeah, yeah, then we start putting them in the company name and putting other security and other things into place. But like at the beginning, it was like that's what we just did to make it work. As you think about your success, then for your C&M rental business, I guess how much do you attribute the success of that just to the timing of the market? Because it sounds like you guys just timed or it sounds like we did. We timed the market very well, and we kind of just lucked out in a way, I guess.
Yes, we got very lucky. The market was low, and right when we were trying to grow our business, and we grew relatively aggressively. We were buying maybe 1 to 2 houses a year,
Mm,
all with mortgages. Minimum amounts down that we were allowed to for the banks.
hmm
So we grew as aggressively as possible while the market was favorable for us to do so. And the
hmm,
key in our growth was we always did our math beforehand. I have to emphasize that. Buying a house for income is not the same thing as going there and buying it to live in. You don't go in there and say, "Oh, I don't like the color of the paint," or "I don't like the layout of this room." You just simply evaluate how much this thing is worth as income, what kind of expenses are reasonable, what are long term
mm,
expenses, and treat it as an investment, keeping in mind that income is a variable.
So you weren't emotional about it. It was a very like calculated investment,
Yeah,
is what it was. It
yeah.
was not emotional at all.
The hardest part about not about being emotional about it isn't so much on the buying side. For me, it's on the after it's been owned by a side where we get problems at the properties, where we get a tenant that's not paying. Then that's when the blood pressure gets a little high. You have a property where you put a lot of effort into it, it looks
Mhm.
nice, and then you don't have a successful placement, and the income isn't there, and the place is not maintained like you
Or
would
or
hope.
or or they ruined the place, right?
Yes, yes, that's correct. And even sometimes they accidentally ruin it. Were you there? I think it was 343 Broad Street, where the nice young lady tenant decided to paint the whole apartment pink.
Yes, I was there helping you paint over that.
Yeah, yeah,
I remember that. Yeah,
yeah,
I actually remember the tenant. The tenant's name is escaping me at the moment, but I remember her. I remember.
yeah. She was
Uh,
nice enough, but everything pink, and there was no going after for that because she doesn't have any money to pay for that. She just didn't get a security deposit back, but it was probably 40 hours worth of work to paint a whole two-bedroom apartment upstairs, downstairs, from pink to
paint.
normal standard colors. But that's
Well,
that's that's where I find the emotional part happens is when we have issues with tenants disrespecting what you happen to own.
yeah, because they don't own it. You own it. And so because they don't own it, they don't really care to the extent that you care. And so like it's kind of I don't know, it's disrespectful and it's kind of like, it's upsetting because they don't look at it the way you do. They just look at it, well, I don't care, like you're my landlord and if I trash a place, like you're going to have to fix it. Ha ha ha. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
And that's yeah. I in fact I actually remember what was it? Oh, 142 Oliver. The pipes. Remember the
yeah,
pipes?
yeah. Tenant purposely went in the basement and took a hammer to made one of those 6-inch, 8-inch cast iron pipes.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
that was
that
ex-
was
that was an
that was
expensive repair.
expense.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
nowadays I got people I can go send over there for $35 an hour on our dime to go do it. But at the time we were hiring plumbers, charging us a couple grand to do that.
I remember that. I remember we were so upset about it and the apartment was absolutely trash too. If I remember right, this was the lady that was in the back unit. And she had Was this the place we also like tore up the couch, or we like ripped it apart or something like that too? Like I think it was one
Uh,
of those.
I think tearing up the couch. I think that was 343 Broad Street, because
Oh, it
we
was
had
Broad Street.
yeah, because we had a apartment on the second floor, and
Okay.
a very big couch there,
Yes.
and it would be very hard to get that out. So we demoed that couch. Now I've demoed a lot of couches since then.
Since then,
At the
yeah.
time, we did it with like an axe. Now it's like, no, 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 that's not how you do that. I've got a sawzall to cut that kind of stuff up. And
Well, we didn't know what we were doing at that time.
we
We're
didn't have
just
the
like brute forcing it.
yeah, we were brute forcing it. And so yeah, it's a whole different story with the sawzall versus an axe. But we had a good time with that, and
That
we
was
tossed it
fun.
out the window. Tossed it out the
Oh
window.
yeah, I remember that. We did toss it out the window because we did that, and then we tossed out the window, and
Yeah,
I do recall that. Yeah, because actually it was a red. Yeah, I remember it now because that was a red couch, and we
red
broke it
couch.
up
Yeah,
and threw it out. Yeah, it's crazy. Like I remember that stuff. Yeah, because that was and that was the same place where we had the person where they notched the up going up the stairs because they were trying to get a mattress up the stairs too. Wow, yeah, there's so many. That's the thing. I think that's what's the most enjoyable or interesting part about it is there's so many stories of so many different things and jaded old landlords. Oh, and when I say landlords, it's the landlords that did this stuff themselves because I think if you just kind of like farm everything out, you don't get to see all this stuff. You don't get to do all this stuff. And I think, you and I have said multiple times, Charlie, to our employees is that everything you have done, I have done.
yeah, that's correct. That's correct. Toilet being changed. Yes, I've changed the toilet. The basement being full of sewage, and you got to clean that out. Yep, I've stood in the boots of the sewage. Not water, sewage. I know the
Sewage.
difference. You'll know the difference. You know, that couch you and me took apart. I've done probably dozens since then, because people love to leave their couches behind. That's a thing. That's a thing. Yeah, couches and mattresses. You would not believe how many couches, mattresses, and television sets people leave behind.
You know what I hated the most though? And you know what it is. You probably know what I hated the most. Do you remember what it is? The thing I hated to do the most?
Well, what was that?
You remember when we were at well, the time it was the worst. It was at that place, 343 Broad Street. Let's just put it this way. I'll give you a hint. No electricity. But there'd be something we'd have to clean. More specifically, something Charlie would have to clean. Refrigerators.
Oh, the refrigerator. Oh, I forgot about that. That's not a thing anymore. Now, because at the time we were trying to save money, we cleaned the refrigerators.
Yeah, we had to save money at the
Yeah,
time. Yeah.
yeah, and now it's like I find you rarely get the smell out of them. So I bundle them up and have them thrown out as it is.
Oh, you just throw them in the dump trailer and away you go?
No,
Or where'd they go?
the
Or
used
recycle?
the the used the used appliance salespeople take them.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
stoves and
interesting.
refrigerators. The used appliance people come and take them. Flip flop them.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's nice. That's quite interesting. Yeah, because I hated those. I remember a couple of those I was doing. I was just gagging, and you had to do it because I just could not do it.
Yeah, the
I
head of
could.
our repair team has that same issue too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. If I do have to clean one of those out because there's just too much in there, he can't be in the room. I have to do that myself.
Yeah, I just can't handle it.
Well, I just had a case where the apartment was empty for like 6 8 weeks because we were waiting for approval,
Mm-hmm.
and the tenant had a small child, and small child maybe two and a half, something like that, I would guess. And over in the corner there was this, oh, it was maybe 2 foot by 2 foot square thing. I said, "What is that?" I went to pick that up. Oh, now this has been 6 8 weeks like this. Oh, that's a toilet for a little kid, and it's full. Oh my god, the smell on that killed me. That killed me, and it was heavy. I had to
Oh
put
my
that.
god.
It was heavy, so I had to lift that up over my head and put it into a dump trailer, and it was sloshing around in there. It was
Charles, I'm gonna gag right now. I
yeah,
can smell it.
that was really bad. That was really bad. That
Oh
was
my
yeah,
gosh.
because it was human sewage for
6 weeks
months.
or whatever months.
Yeah,
Oh
months.
my gosh. Yeah, and I mean, I change a lot of diapers, having a 3.5-year old and now I'll have another one, but like I've changed so many diapers and some of them are just horrible. But I can't imagine leaving human feces in a place, you know, for 6 weeks or whatever. Oh,
Yeah, I mean, who
gross.
lets it get that full anyway? I mean, that had to be, 40 pounds. It was
Wow.
heavy. It was heavy.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah, that does not make any sense. Wow, that's nuts. So it sounds like, well, I mean, I know this, but other folks are watching this. I mean, we grew pretty aggressively. And I would say, you know, knowing what you know now, what would you have done different? What would you have done different knowing what you know now? Knowing that you'd be in the position you're in now, what would you have done differently?
Even more aggressive if we could have. If we could
You
have.
mean you mean go super aggressive, like go for broke.
Yeah, yeah. Instead of one or two a year, two or three a year. Yeah, yeah.
Because you
Now
could
the
could have done it. Could have done it, huh?
could have done it. Now it thing is we ramped up our knowledge and our property
Oh
base at the
yeah.
same time.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
when we had just one property, we were learning how to do things.
Mhm.
If we were still learning and we had five or six properties or 10 properties, we might have failed. I don't think we would have
Uh,
failed, but we might have failed. And
mm,
the margin for failure, if you get a whole bunch of properties that have issues at the same time, is a problem. Bringing them on board more slowly allows one to be complete before you bring the next one on.
mm.
So the only change would have been to possibly be more aggressive if we felt that we could have handled it.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think, in the beginning, we were doing all the repairs ourselves. We were doing everything because we didn't know anybody, and we kind of were doing all that to figure it out how to do it. I mean, I remember numerous times, Charles, where I would send you to Home Depot and I'd say I need this part, and you'd come back, and what would happen?
Oh, yeah. Either I got you the wrong part, or you needed something different. I got news for you though. That's still a thing. That's still a thing. I think that's always going to be a thing. Until you're like a plumbing company, and you got in
Yeah.
your truck a whole bunch of things. It's
Hmm.
always a trip to the store, coming back and forth. Especially things like if you're doing a hot water tank, we've got a bucket now with, 1 inch, 2 inch, 4 inch, 6 inch little pieces of half-inch black iron pipe and a bunch
Yeah,
of fittings and all that kind of stuff, just in case the new hot water tank doesn't match up the location of the old one very well. So, but
that's
it's still,
hilarious.
it's still a thing.
That's still a thing. Yeah, I remember that. There were days when you and I would we're like, yeah, we're gonna go do this hot water heater this morning, and this afternoon we're gonna go watch a movie or whatever, or go to the gym or go for badminton, and we would end up, spending the whole day trying to fix the hot water heater for whatever reason, just trying to get the stupid part and couldn't get that. And my brother would text me and be like, "You're still working on that?" And it's like, we don't know what the heck we're doing.
Yeah, yeah.
Kind of figuring it out and getting the parts. And yeah, I mean, it was quite interesting. Yeah, and I actually encourage anybody who does an investment real estate to do some of the work yourself, because I think it helps you understand what it takes, or like what goes into it. So then that way, like, when somebody else is going to go do the work for you, like you kind of know what to look for. Kind of have an idea, like what I mean, think about it now, Charlie, for all the work that you've done now. Kind of now have an idea, like, hey, if we want to go do some plumbing, we want to do this or that. Like you kind of know. It's not necessarily that you could do that. You probably could do the work, but you're like, well, I kind of know what it takes to do that work now.
Yeah.
So it makes it easier.
Yeah, we've had cases recently where people want to we got leaky gas lines, and people come back with $2,000-3,000 bids. I said, no, no, no. You know what you're doing? You're going putting air on that thing. You're finding the leak. You're all taking it apart. You're putting some new pipe dope on, and you're screwing it back down. You're going to be done in
Mm,
2 hours. Don't be telling me that's $2,000 and you need a whole bunch of new pipe. That's a load of malarkey.
yeah. So you've mentioned that you have multiple businesses. So maybe can you walk me through what businesses you have and like what's the objective of them or what's the goal of them? Because it sounds like you have a couple other ones. So maybe you can kind of explain to other people. And then like I guess then the follow-up question to that is like, how the heck do you balance all those different businesses or passions? I would say.
Sure. Well, I think the core business is our C&M Rental slash Marathon Properties business, the one that we started first.
Hmm.
Uh, that's our core of 10, 11 different properties that we own, manage, and are hoping in 7 years will be cash outright on those guys. So that's not a source of income for me at all, but it's
Yeah.
the outside of my own investments, that's the largest single value thing in my portfolio. So that's C&M Rental. And then there's Marathon Properties, which is the property management arm of C&M Rental, which
Mm-hmm.
we started essentially to uh, supplement our income, allow us to offset the cost of subcontracting some of the maintenance, some of the property management duties to somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
When we started C&M Rental, we were doing all of the property management activities ourselves. One
Mm-hmm.
property, two properties, that's fine. Three, four, five, and with two full-time jobs, it becomes harder. So with the property management business, we're able to, manage a number of other properties and have the income from that offset the cost of managing our own properties.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Then there's First Designs, which I started with my business partner, Greg Fergala. And Greg's a very handy person, knows how to do a lot of repairs. And we started at a time when we had just lost, parted ways with somebody who had been doing almost all of our repair work for us.
Mm-hmm.
And we decided, well, let's give this a shot to see if we can handle this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's at and we ran that for a couple years with both Greg and I working full-time jobs,
Mm-hmm.
and doing it on the side or having some people do some work for us. Now we transitioned out of our full-time jobs so that I do a lot of that maintenance work myself, um, which is nice exercise. I do demo work and put down flooring and put down painting. Lets me see the apartments and see what things are like. But I also do a lot of the management of it, maintain schedules, send crews out to do things like that. So we're not
Yeah,
there.
you're very organized, Charlie. I always say like you're like the plate spinner or like the operations officer that keeps everything going.
Yeah, for that side of the business, I make sure that all the work orders are signed, either somebody for us or I have it subcontracted to somebody else. Depends on
Mm-hmm.
what makes sense. Because for a while there, before we had that, we were having work not getting done for quite a while. Now we have
Yeah.
that under control. So things aren't going to sit for 2 months unless we're managing a property and an owner doesn't give us approval. Then
Yeah.
I also have a company called i3ds. i3ds has a couple completely disparate arms. One is an engineering side. I do some heat transfer work, which I've always done
Mm-hmm.
throughout my life, and I do that for a couple different companies, usually in evening hours, unless I'm free during the day. And we also do, my business partner Greg, who's also with First Designs, does 3D and 2D drafting.
Mm.
Um, so for skid manufacturers, we do some drawings for him, and he's doing that almost full time. And we have on board a young, just out of university drafter who's starting to work for us, and an older gentleman who can do some side work for us too. And completely separate from that, we've got into the business of providing trussing. for
What's what's trussing? Because not everybody may know what trussing is. What is that?
well, picture like you go to, and this would be a bigger, much bigger show than what we have. But say you went to see a concert, and the
Oh,
trussing is the aluminum stuff that holds up the stage, or that you
oh,
might,
okay,
yeah, or that you might use um, to build a finish line at a race. Now we're
okay.
mostly using the trussing to build. If you ever saw American Ninja Warrior,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
okay, that's what we're using our trussing for. We're doing an
That's
event.
cool.
We're doing an event. We did it last year. We're going to do it this year. We're providing the trussing at Buffalo River Works, a couple 100-foot long rigs, and we set up the obstacles, and then the kids run on it, and it's a competition kind of a thing. Competition is run by somebody else, but we're providing the trussing. And
Hmm.
we've gone out to a couple schools. We're going to do the Eden Corn Festival next year. We're going to do the Erie County Fair. Um, so that's such as a completely different side business that we're looking to grow because we have this trussing in house that we bought for that specific event. Now we're trying to look for that to
You're
grow.
trying to use it for other stuff, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
that's correct. That's correct.
Gotcha.
And the last business is completely unprofitable, but it's my most enjoyable. It's mine and Kenny being authors. Um, the cost of publishing maps, editing far exceeds the income at the current moment. Maybe we'll break even in 20 years. Um, but the books get awesome reviews and it's very fun to do. So
Yeah.
that would be the last business that we
Yeah.
have going.
I've read the first book, and again, as I say, I'm not just saying this because we're friends and business partners, but it's really good. And I told you, like, it reminds me of my childhood when I would spend summers with my dad, and I would sit in my room and be enraptured by a Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman, Dragonlance book. That's what it
Yeah,
reminds me of, and it's just the pacing and the story and the characters. It just reminds me of that. That's what it really
yeah.
reminds me of.
It's 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 like a Dungeons and Dragons
Yeah,
kind of a thing. Not using the rules, not using their character classes, but it's that kind of a thing. A party of adventurers going
yeah,
on adventures and doing things together. Um,
yeah. It's really cool. And so you have the first book, and I'm assuming you have more. I
yeah,
mean,
books 2 and 3 are at our editors. We
oh
expect
wow.
them to be at Amazon within maybe 3 months, something like that. And then we have an audiobook for the first one, and then we're gonna get the books 2 and 3 as an audiobook as well.
Yeah, the guy who does your audiobooks, I really like him.
Yes.
He's
Yeah.
really he's really good. The voice lends super well to it. I mean, I have the book, I have the audiobook, and he tells it very well. It just works very well with it. He's a very distinct voice. Very
Yeah.
distinct.
Well, he's a British actor. He's actually
Yeah.
doing. There's a little delay in starting the next one because he's doing a series of plays, musicals in England at a
Mm,
famous playhouse there. So he's not famous, but he's quite good, and
he's
he
quite
makes.
good.
Yeah, he's quite good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very, very interesting. Yeah, that's so when you finish this, I guess I'm assuming it's a trilogy because you got three books. Is there gonna be more? Are you gonna take a little vacation or take some time off, or are you gonna write
No,
more?
no, there's no time off. We're actually in the process of uh, trying to make a path for the whole series to get to
Oh
figure out
wow.
where we are now and where it's going to end. We're going
Oh
to guess
wow.
maybe 9 books, 10 books, something like that. Going because the character started out at basically age 17, turning
Uh
18, and started out not knowing where he is going to be, and then at the end of the series, the goal is to make him. He'll be something like the heroes he read about when he was a kid. That's
oh,
yeah.
gotcha.
And then you
Interesting.
see the story arcs of all of his companions during it as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. I mean, it's a cool business because it's almost like a passion project. it is a business, but like you're doing it because you enjoy it. It's kind honestly, it's kind of like even like what I do with YouTube. It's like I do it because I enjoy it. I'm not trying to make money. If I did it to make money, then
Then you would you would be on the corner.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, on the
yeah,
corner is like with your hand with a coffee cup asking for money. Yeah,
yeah.
it's not a profitable venture, but it's a 2 hours a night every night kind of a thing. We're
Wow.
in a little hiatus. We're waiting for the editor to come back, and we're setting up the rest of the books. But once the plots are set up, then it's 2 3 hours every day.
So you guys are very dedicated, very focused on this and committed to this like every day. So I mean I think I mean, I told you I wanted to write a book and I feel like that's the only way you could do it is like you have to dedicate time every day. You have
Yeah, yeah,
to do it. So it's very interesting. Maybe one of these days I'll get to writing my book. I again I think the challenge of me is like I have a couple of different. I mean, Charles, you've known me a long time. You know I always like to dabble into different things, and so for me it's tough because I'm like I have an idea in my head and I'm like I'm thinking about it, and then like it takes a little bit to stay focused on that, and then now having a second kid that's
yeah.
not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen for a little while, I don't think. Unless I chip away at it a little bit here or there. But I guess one thing I would like to ask you about says, and maybe it's different between fiction and nonfiction, but like it's almost like you just have to write the first draft, no matter how bad it is. Like you just need to get it done. And that's what I've heard from other authors. Like you just need to get a draft. You just need to get something done,
It's
and
not
then
no, that's not how. That's not the guide we found. What we did
that's
is
not what you found.
no,
Yeah.
that's not how we did it. What we did is a more disciplined approach. We
Mm.
came up with the basic ideas of where we want to go,
Hmm.
and then we did. And this is not exactly what you do for a nonfiction story. This is a fiction story. But
Yeah,
basically,
fiction is different.
yeah,
Yeah.
for fiction stuff, you go ahead and you write. First, you write all information descriptions on all the characters, so you know who the characters
Mm.
are. You give them characteristics, physical characteristics, background stories, so you know who these characters are.
Hmm.
Then you do scene outlines. Scene outlines, always has a basic certain elements like a disaster. Every scene element ends in a disaster. So, the characters are coming along, they achieve this, but oh no, there's this disaster that they have to come, and then they have to overcome, and they have to react to it.
Hmm.
So you basically write a whole bunch of scene outlines from the very
Hmm.
beginning of the book to the end of the book. Uh, and then it's only after all those scene outlines are done, then you write the book.
Hmm. Yeah, I feel like that's yeah, and so I think was what I was kind of pointing out of just getting the first draft done. I definitely don't think that would work as you're saying for fiction. It's almost like for fiction, it's like you got to imagine like the scene of the different like activities or things that they're, encountering and telling the story about those scenes. So it's different. And so that's interesting. Yeah, that's very interesting. So before I forget, I do know that you also have one other business you forgot to mention. So you have your business with Wong. So what is and I think you call it was it is it Black
Black
Dragon?
Dragon.
But like maybe you could talk a little bit about that and then like how is that different than C&M? Is it a different market? Like what does that look like?
Well, the uh, fundamentally the goal of Black Dragon is the same as C&M
Hmm.
was. Fundamentally,
Okay.
it's intended for long term. It's investing in properties that should have some sort of positive income base.
Okay.
Uh, However, it started at a time when the market was not nearly as favorable.
Gotcha. Got it.
So, what happens is that we have a portfolio that is not as fundamentally as strong as it would
Hmm.
be for C&M Rental. And that
Got it.
by that I mean either the quality of the property isn't quite as good, or the quality of the property versus what we paid for it isn't the same.
Oh, gotcha.
You know,
Yeah.
we're paying 1.5 times what C&M Rental paid for a house. So
Yeah.
obviously, the income, net income per month, is just not the same. The cash flow is not
Hmm.
the same. In order to offset that, like C&M Rental has all 15-year loans.
Yes. Yeah.
Black
Yeah.
Dragon has generally 30-year loans or 25-year loans. We use some different strategies because we didn't have a lot of cash up front and the properties were more. We use private money lenders a little bit.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we use some private money lenders to get the amount down needed on a property from 25% down to 10%.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Gotcha.
so that it cut down. It allowed us to grow much faster than we did at C&M,
Hmm.
but not nearly fundamentally as strong. Our latest acquisition is an Airbnb in North Carolina, near
Yeah,
Charlotte.
that's very interesting because
That's
like
yeah,
it's a different strategy. It's completely different.
it's completely different. It's a single family home that we're doing maybe $80,000 to $100,000 with repairs. I think it's closer to
Wow.
$100,000 with repairs. But it's where you, instead of looking at, okay, this is good enough to rent, you want this to look beautiful, as if you're living there.
Mm,
So you
as if
go
you're living
ahead
there.
and you take a 1970s homes that were all boxed in like my home is now, and you say, okay, I want this out and I want a beam here so the kitchen is open to the living room.
So you're
You know,
changing the design concept of those older houses.
yeah,
I
so
gotcha.
like the one we bought had a mother-in-law suite. Well, we
Oh,
don't
okay.
want a mother-in-law suite. We opened that up so it's a fourth bedroom. Well, another
I
one that
gotcha.
Wong had bought on his own had a attached garage. He remodeled that into an actual fourth bedroom.
Hmm. Gotcha.
Because Wong, my business partner, has three. Well, I think two on his own, one with another business partner, and now the one with me. So we've got a total of
Mm,
four. But we're in these cases we're counting on some level of appreciation at some point.
gotcha.
Um, because we're taking out loans to do repairs and we're going to have to refinance. It's much trickier. It's not nearly as profitable, and it's not going to be profitable for a longer period of time. Now,
Yeah.
what's interesting is that we are in a period of high inflation, and if that inflation, traditionally, that high inflation devalues the cost of all these loans
Yes. Yes.
because it inflates the value of the price of the home. Over time.
Hmm.
So if we are in a period of high inflation, the rents on all these things should see some portion of that inflation, um, and the value of the house will go up, and we'll be able to profit in that fashion.
Yeah.
Um,
But the loan amount will not.
the lo-
You're basically paying with less valuable dollars, basically.
yeah. So
Yeah.
you can benefit from inflation. It's not really. I'm not rooting for high inflation though. It's not something I like. I don't like high interest
Yeah.
rates. Are not a friend of investors. High inflation rates is not a
Mhm.
friend of anybody. But it does for established portfolios in that business. It makes them now. It'll have a much bigger positive impact on C&M Rental, where we purchased a house for 50,000. Now it's worth 170,000, and the rent income goes up by that much more.
Yeah, rent goes up a lot. Yeah, because of that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're
Yeah.
getting rents that might be 1.5 times what we originally planned on.
Yeah. That's yeah. Yeah, so it sounds like that strategy is the same. It's just different timing, and it sounds like you guys could be a little bit more risky about potentially trying different strategies because you guys both are open to that. It sounds like you and Wong are both open to trying different strategies. So it's like, well, we'll go do this. We'll see if this works, and if it doesn't, okay. I think you and I tried to do something similar, but the challenge was it was just a bad it was the wrong town it was the wrong town to buy into, wouldn't you say, Charlie? The 301 pain.
Yeah. That was a big fail. Yeah, that was a property. It was a nice upstairs was 3 units. Downstairs it was empty. That was a doctor's office, And
It
under
could have been
normal,
nice. It could
it
have
could
been
have been
nice.
nice. It should have been nice.
Should
The
have been
amount of
nice.
work really required was minimal. But the town got a hold of it, inspector got a hold of it, and sprinkler systems, 2 units, double sets of drywall. I wanted to see plans. It ruined it, so we ended up selling it. It was not a profitable venture. We also tried. We didn't mention it, but we also tried a couple of fix and flips early
Oh
on.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, we
Yep.
did. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
Yeah, we did two of them. One of them, I think, made a tiny amount of money. The other one maybe lost a little money.
yeah. I think it did.
And
Yeah.
then Mark had a fix and flip with the same person. I don't know if you remember, but it never sold, and it's a rental unit now.
Oh yeah, the one that's just up the street, right? Well, oh
Yeah,
no, 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 no,
it's in
no.
Depew.
It's in Depew. That's right. Yeah, yeah,
It's in
yeah. I
Depew,
remember that.
and it turns
43
out,
Church. Yeah,
yeah,
right.
43 Church, and it turns
Yeah.
out that worked out better because now that property is worth a fair amount of money because we've hit the inflation, and we've had, as a single family, we've had good sets of tenants over the years, so we've got lucky with
Yeah.
that. But a fix and
The other two did not work. Yeah, I can't remember what the one address was, but
one
Killhofer
of
was the
them,
other one. Killhofer.
Killhofer was a total disaster because he couldn't get the work done. And as
Yeah.
it turns out now that I've been doing work like that, I alone could flip that house in 6 weeks because all we were talking really is painting, flooring.
Yeah, I remember because that was the whole thing. I actually remember when we were talking about that. The whole reason why you and I were like looking at this and we're like, this is like a no-brainer. This is just like painting and flooring. Like you and I, even with the experience level of what we had at that time of doing the work, we're like, this is a no-brainer. But he just couldn't get the work done.
He couldn't
But
get the
like,
work done, and he kept delaying and delaying and delaying and giving us excuses. It was a case where that was one of the first nails in the coffin in the relationship was how those things turned out because he made money on these things because he did the repairs and he charged us a good amount of money, and it just wasn't any profit at the end of the day.
yeah, it just didn't work.
No,
Yeah, and then we had the other flip, and I think that one I can't remember if we made or if we did. It was just a little bit.
it
I
was
can't
just a
even
little
remember.
bit because we had to give money back on the pool being bad.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So related to all of this, Charles, I guess how do you balance all this, or how do you like try to keep this all focused? Because you got all these businesses, and you're kind of like all over the place. Like, how do you keep it all straight?
Well, the most important thing is you got to have people to delegate work to.
Mm-hmm.
To run C&M Rental, we have a couple of people working essentially full time. For the repair work, I've got subcontractors. I've got people working for me. I've got myself. I've got Greg. For the i3DS stuff, that's mainly all the drafting stuff is done by other people. I just do the
Hmm.
accounting for it. We've got one very strong accountant that looks at everything for us on a monthly basis. So it's having a really good team around you to handle it and being willing to, you know, a 9 to 5 job is great because at 5 o'clock you're done. With a business, you can go to the movies in the middle of the day, but
Yeah.
sometimes you're going to be invoicing something at the middle of the night because you need that invoice to go out. So you got to be willing to give a little bit in those kinds of things.
Yeah, you just gotta find a. I mean, it was like when you and I were doing that, together. I mean, there were like nights we'd be, doing our bookkeeping, or, I mean, just like the other night, we were talking through the delinquency report or other stuff. I mean, that's just like, I think the thing is like when you have your own business and you're kind of doing all this stuff, like it's always going to be there. That work's
Yeah,
always going to be there. It's always going to be there. And it's not like somebody else will do like some of the stuff. Some of the stuff, you can get other people to do it, but there's only certain stuff that Charles can do or that Mike can do or other people can do. And so if you just don't do it, like it's still going to be there when you come back.
yeah.
Which I guess, yeah.
Some of the stuff is just going to be there if you don't do it. So
Yeah,
you
you don't
just got to
really,
do it.
you just got to do it. Yeah, you don't really have a choice. So as I kind of close, two questions. So one is around, I guess, what's the end goal, Charles? What's the end goal of all this? I mean, you have all these businesses. Have you thought about like what your end game is? I mean, are you thinking about like when you're going to retire, or like where, or what is that going to look like? Like, because I'm sure you're not going to want to be doing repairs for the next like 20 years, but like, what
No,
does that look
no.
like?
Well, the original plan was Florida in 6 or 7 years because I
Mm,
bought a house there with my two brothers. Beautiful 5 bedroom, 4,000 square foot floor house, a little northwest of Orlando. So that was
mm,
like retirement. But in retirement, I would still do heat transfer, manage
yeah.
things, easy stuff like that. Now it appears I have a fiance. Family is definitely a possibility.
Possibility. Yeah.
Definitely a possibility. So that is a whole that puts everything into a giant question mark. It's like I'm now all of a sudden it's my life. I'm 52, and all of a sudden it's more like I'm 25. So we got
Yeah.
we got to figure out how that all is going to go.
And see what's interesting about that is I'm further along in that, and I know how that is, and I'm like listening to you, hearing you talk about that, and it's like, fiance getting married, that's like a big commitment. I mean, a big time commitment because that person's your family, and that's a lot of work. And then you start talking about kids.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, you. I mean, to be fair, Charlie, you have your kids, but you can shake them up and play with them and throw them around and have fun with the kids, and then you can give them back to other people.
yeah,
You won't be able to do that if that happens.
yeah. Yeah. Right now I visit some friends and I play with the kids, and when I'm done, I can give them back. And then I don't have to be a role model exactly. I mean, I have to be good, but I mean, I can go out and have a good time with the kids.
So you're
Uh,
like one of the kids, Charles.
I'm one of the kids. I don't have to like discipline them or anything like that. I make sure they're safe. We don't do anything
Yeah, of
dangerous. But
course,
you
of
know what I
course.
mean. You know what I
I
mean.
know exactly what you mean. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're like their friend. You're like their big friend,
Yes,
and you
I'm
play
like
with them.
155 pound friend. So it'll be different with kids, So
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, so I mean, but that's the thing. Like something like that could completely change everything because you could be sitting here thinking, "Well, hey, I'm going to retire in 7 or 8 years," and it's like, well, I mean, depending on when all this stuff happens, but like if you guys have kids, I mean, they could be 5 years old or 6 or whatever years old, and depending how quickly things go, but like, yeah, you're going to be very busy then.
yeah, I've been very busy. But
Very
the
busy.
important thing is though, it's always been about making myself planning for the long term, economically sound, financially sound.
Hmm.
And it doesn't
Yeah.
matter what you're doing. The key is to be financially sound. And in my case, I'm having businesses that will generate money in the future without me physically being there. I have people
Mm,
coming on board in the first that will allow the work to be done without me being physically there. So even if I
mm.
was at the point where I don't want to physically work,
You
I
could
could be
still you could still manage it
I could still
remotely or
manage it and
whatever.
make the same income, or
Yeah.
essentially the same income.
Essentially the same. Yeah, because you'd be hiring somebody, but like, the business would probably grow a little bit over time, or it would be a little bit different, and you could still make the same income. But the fact is you could hire somebody else to help you do that work. So you
Yeah,
don't have to do all of it.
yeah.
So
Dad might be getting Social Security. What does his dad do? Get collect Social Security.
he collects Social Security and his rent checks. That's all he does.
Yeah,
That's all he
and he
does.
play and he plays video games.
Plays video games, and he plays 7 Days to Die, and that's it. That's all he
Yeah,
does, or
yeah,
Civilization.
yeah,
Oh, that's hilarious. So I guess in closing, and it's kind of related to like what you were just saying, but given that you've kind of had a very interesting path of where you started to where you are now, is like it's almost like you're not just a real estate investor, but you're kind of like a multi-business owner, kind of like an entrepreneur, just starting and doing different things and kind of figuring it out. And so, I'm sure you've had a lot of failures, you've had a lot of successes along the way. I guess what are some key ideas or key principles? And you kind of talked about a couple already, but like, what are some key ideas or key principles that may be useful to other people that are wanting to start, not maybe just a real estate business, but just anything? Or they're like, hey, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up because they're just getting out of college. Maybe you have some thoughts to share with them.
Yeah. Obviously, one of the things we already talked about is any kind of business that you do your math first, right?
Mm,
Understand
yes.
that the business itself
Yes.
is going to be profitable. How many hours are you actually going to be putting into this, and how much
Yes.
money are you going to be making out of it? Would you be better off working at McDonald's? And understand if something is a long-term investment that it grows. Understand the whole concept of compound interest, or the value of putting money back into a business and
Hmm.
it growing. That's important. Second is take. I have been very lucky to take advantage of other people's passions.
Mm,
Did
yes.
I have a
Yes, I
passion
agree.
for real estate? No, no. My business partner did. I took advantage of that. I have a business
Yep.
partner who has a passion or skills for his drafting and his repairs and things like that. Do I have a passion for those? No. I took advantage of that, made opportunities, and helped him realize. So some you might be the person who has the passion, and you need somebody to work with and help organize that, or you might
Yeah.
be the reverse, like I've been taking advantage, or partnering with
A-
somebody who
and
has
and
a
when you
particular
say
passion.
yeah, and when you're saying taking advantage of, it's not just it's a beneficial thing to both parties.
Yes.
It's not just like I'm taking advantage of them and like I'm pulling one over on them. It's like you guys working together makes you both better,
Yeah,
you know?
you're giving each other an opportunity to do something you couldn't do alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
you're taking advantage of each other's skill sets is what I'm really
Mhm.
getting at.
Yeah, yeah.
Taking advantage of each other's passions.
What else? Do you have anything else that somebody's out there is like wanting to start a business, or they're just out of college and they're like, "Hey, I have all this debt. I don't know what to do," or something like that.
That's
Because
a
I
good
hear
way
a
to
lot of
say it.
those.
That, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, if you're young enough so that you haven't gone to college yet, please do what I did. I went and I figured out how much my degree is going to make me. I didn't know too much
Uh,
about engineering. I didn't, because nobody in my family graduated from college. But I went.
mhm,
I picked a career path that would be profitable, and I felt I had some talent and interest in. And you
mhm.
got to pick a career path that you both have some level of talent and you're going to make money on. Please don't go to college and pick a career path that is not going to make any money for yourself, because then you're going to be living in an apartment the rest of your life, obviously. The second, just for anybody, be financially responsible.
Mm,
Don't
yeah.
run up tens of thousands of dollars in credit card. Save your money. The fact that I had saved my money from age 22 when I had my first engineering job to when we started when I was late 30s or something gave me a strong foundation with which to pursue business interests later in my life. So
Mm, yeah.
try to
Because
build
without
financial.
that, you wouldn't have been able to do it. You wouldn't have
No,
been able to do
no,
it.
we would
Yep.
have no means for us to move, because it it it's just a fact of life. It takes money to make money. You know,
Yeah.
somebody with a super great deal of talent, a basketball player, or somebody with exceptional talent in something can be successful without money. But most of us are not
Yes.
exceptionally talented in any particular field. That's not how it is for most people.
Yeah. Yeah, they may have some moderate amount of talent, but in order to become like a super talent, a lot of that's also hard work. It's not just like to have the talent for it, but you got to be willing to put the work in for it. And you got to also have the money to be able to put the work in or the training for it. And if you don't have that, you're not going to be that exceptional talent. It kind of like success begets success. Or in this case, like having the money will make it easier for you to roll it into something else. I think one thing I always try to remind myself with why I got into real estate, because people have asked me, hey, Mike, why'd you get into real estate? And I say, and I think I've told you this before, is like, I want to make money while I sleep. That was the whole reason. That was the whole thing I would say. And I got that from my grandparents. My grandparents were the ones that told me that. Because they had, I think, I don't think you ever saw the house. No, you didn't see the house, Charles. Front Street in Owego. We had this nice greenhouse, and they had a tenant that lived upstairs. one of our specials where they were there for 18 years.
Oh,
But
nice.
but the problem was, Charlie, they were paying the same rent for those
The
whole
same
18
rent
years.
for 18 years. Yeah.
That would not have worked for us. So
No, no, but you do see that a lot. You do see that a lot.
yeah, I mean, you have long-term tenants, and like that sometimes happens, but yeah. But yeah, I mean, this was good. I'm hoping that some folks will get some stuff out of this where they're kind of like, trying to understand like what's possible, because I think you're kind of far enough in your life, and you've kind of had such an interesting journey. Like, I'm sure like you're probably reflecting back on your life and you're like, I had no idea it was going to go this way. Like, how could you have planned
No, no, no.
for your life
Yeah,
to turn out that way?
no, it was just mere happenstance. I mean, I met you because of a mutual friend from work. I met Greg because we happen to be coworkers at a
Yeah,
different company. It turns out, though, he was my neighbor for 8 months, and I never even talked to him.
that's crazy.
Yeah, he was my neighbor
Seriously?
for 8 months. Yeah, because he remembered my old town car, my '88 town car. You would see in the
Oh
driveway,
my gosh.
and yeah, but he was. It was only like 8 months. He was there.
But even like Wong. So Wong, you met through work, right? Or
I
right?
hired Wong as an intern, then I brought him in at full time at another company because at the time the
Ah,
company was doing very well, and I had a lot of pull in the company, and I was able to bring in an intern.
I remember that. I remember that. That was when it was good to be the boss, Charlie.
And that's when it was. To be honest, it was from a work standpoint. That was my time at Boss Hammond was my most fun time because
Yeah.
it was a very small company. I had a lot of authority at the time. We were very successful, and I was good at what I was doing. After that, I worked for bigger companies. This wasn't the same. It wasn't the same.
Yeah. Well, I feel like the bigger companies are different. And so I find, I mean, Amanda and I even talk about this, is that I feel like she's better in bigger companies. I'm better in smaller companies. I mean, that's the whole reason why, I wanted to start the company with you. That was the whole reason why I'm enjoying this new gig I'm in, because it's like a startup. And I think you have to have different skills in those big companies. That's what I would say. And managing politics and other things. So yeah, it's just different. It's just different.